This is my 2023 Ford F150 Lightning Lariat extended range with pretty much every option box ticked. It has the Max Tow technology package, it has the tow technology package. I added a lovely bed rug and a lovely electronically retractable tonneau cover. I even have some luggage racks on the back. And this is my second F150 Lightning. My first one was unfortunately written off after I had an unfortunate accident in some snow involving a power line. It was messy. And back in February this year, when we were down in California on our way to film with Aptera, this truck was rear-ended while we were stationary at a red traffic light in California. The person who hit us was behind the wheel of a mid-90s Honda Accord. They had no insurance, and, well, the last 5 months have revolved around us trying to deal with that. And if you watched the recent video on this channel, you might think that this truck was officially written off by my insurance company, because when I made that video, that's what was going to happen. But an 11th hour reprieve came through courtesy of some contacts I had at Ford, and my truck is back, and it's fixed. And I'm going to tell you all about it. Okay, so the last video I made on this truck revolved around the fact that my truck had got a little crack in the rear bumper mount that was caused by that impact back in February. Originally, I'd taken it to a local Ford dealership who had told me there was no damage to the truck, and so I hadn't bothered to look underneath myself because I was still injured from the impact, as was the rest of the team who were with me. And then in March, when we were working on the underside of this truck to install a side step that we did a review on the channel for, we noticed that there was a crack in the bumper, with just about the right amount of rust to indicate that that crack had been sustained at the time of the collision back in February. I took it to an accident repair centre that was recommended to me by a local Ford dealer, different from the one that had told me there was no damage, because why would you go back to a repair shop that had told you there was no damage when there was? And my trouble started. The repair centre went, yep, there's a crack. The insurance adjuster went, yep, there's a crack. You just need to grind it out, weld it, dress it, put some new paint on it and call it good. But the repair centre was like, no, we want to replace that with a like-for-like replacement bumper hanger. So they went and got a bumper hanger for a Ford F150, but they bought one for a standard ICE variation, not an electric variation. And while the F150 Lightning and a regular F150 or an ICE F150 look almost identical from a distance, their chassis are slightly different, and therefore their bumper mounts are slightly different. And in the case of my truck, when they prepared to take that original component off, they discovered the new component that had arrived did not fit. Now, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to second guess the repair shop here, I am very upset with them, Beaverton Auto Body and Paint, you know who you are. They decided to take the original component off, or at least start prepare to take that off by grinding out the original factory welds before the new component arrived and before they decided that it wasn't going to fit. And when that component arrived, they looked at the bit on the truck, they looked at the new component and went, it won't fit. They reached out to the insurance company and said, we can't buy the part. The only way to fix this truck is to replace the entire chassis. Now, I live in Oregon, and Oregon has some pretty strict rules about chassis repair. Basically, in Oregon, you can't do what you can do in most of the US. You can't just cut out a portion of a chassis and then weld in a replacement. You have to replace the whole chassis, which, as I understand it, is not okay in Oregon. That said, I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me on that, but too long didn't read is that the cost to replace the chassis rail on this truck was going to cost $22,000, and therefore the truck was immediately declared a write-off by the insurance company, because the insurance company, they have lots of claims they have to go through. They just want to do whatever is going to save them the most money. And Progressive, my insurance company, made the decision to write my truck off. Now, at that point, that's when I made the video, because I was kind of pissed at both Progressive and also at Beaverton Auto Body and Paint. And so I did as I explained in that video, I reached out to some of my contacts on the Ford press team and said, hey, my truck has been written off by my insurance company for this one little component that they say they can't get. Can you help? Between that publishing of that original video and me finishing the week, Ford reached out and went, hi, here's the special head of body and paint at Ford. He's looked at your photos and no, your truck's fine. He reached out and he sent a message to the repair center and said, hey, I'm from Ford. This is my job. I'm the lead of the body and paint. And he said, hey, here are the things that you need to do in order to fix the truck. Now I have a bunch of paperwork here that I'm trying to read without sharing any of my personal details. But let's start. So I first reported the accident on the 9th of February, right? And that's in this paperwork. And they first look at the truck and they look at the truck and they go, okay, we're going to need to remove the insulator from the frame on the right and left. We're going to remove the rear bracket. We're going to have to buy new ones. We're going to have to remove the bed on the truck, which they didn't do, by the way. They didn't take the pickup bed off. They claimed they were going to have to remove the pickup bed and then replace new components, including new bed bolts. So already this is getting expensive. And then they were going to have to calibrate the semi-autonomous driver assistance features, the Blue Cruise system. That alone cost $560. And then they were going to send the car back to me. And initially they estimated that this whole process was going to cost somewhere in the order of, I think it was going to be like $2,000. All right. That was going to be the initial repair estimate. And that was based on them being able to buy this replacement bracket for the truck, weld out the original factory welds, replace the bracket, weld a new one in, call it good. When they decided they couldn't do that, they then added more costs. And I'm going to talk to this now. The next one was the $17,000 for the actual frame, plus all of the other stuff, which was over the $22,000 repair. And then at the end of last week or the beginning of this, and I can't remember which, so please forgive me, after they'd spoken to my lovely Ford contact, they actually reached out and went, actually, this repair is only going to cost $1,500. And we're going to do the thing that the insurance adjuster originally said. And that was grind out the crack to make sure it was clean, then weld it, then face it, then dress it, paint it, jobs are good. What follows, verbatim, is the official email from Ford telling my repair shop how to fix this. And it's exactly what many of you said in the comments and exactly what I would have done and exactly what the insurance engineer wanted to do. Drill a 1/8 inch hole at the end of the 3/8 inch long crack at the bottom of the left-hand rear bumper bracket. You may do a small V-groove on the edges of the crack area, then perform a solid MIG weld repair on the crack. After proper weld is complete, grind as desired and dress the repair. On the areas that were ground in preparation of removal, I talked about that earlier, do a surface grind to even the area properly, then perform a MIG seam weld on all attachment bead areas to restore the area back to original integrity. I would advise a MIG weld using a stitch pattern here for proper penetration and result. Finish grind all repair areas as required and then apply proper anti-corrosion materials as outlined in the Ford workshop manuals. I highly recommend inside of this rail be cavity wax for proper repair as well as the workshop manual states. Reassemble the vehicle and the repair is complete. The email also goes on like, should you have any issues, reach out to me, who I am. He's the head of body and paint at Ford. And basically, it was a gentle slap. I'm going to call it a gentle slap. I know he wouldn't, but I'm calling it a gentle slap. And I just want to say thank you to Ford's team for doing that. So thank you, Gary, for fixing my truck. Now, I have some thoughts on this all. And the first one is this. As part of my conversation with Gary, I learned that Ford has a special phone number that repair centres can call to discuss difficult repairs on vehicles that would potentially require extra special treatment because there isn't an existing repair guide or there isn't some official easy to do repair that the shop can do. And the reason why the shop didn't want to originally just weld up the crack was because I think they were worried about the liability of doing that, and they needed Ford to go, yep, that's okay. We give you our permission to do that. So take from that what you will. But this special number is something that all repair shops can ring up and go, hey, I need to repair this vehicle. How do I do it? And I think a lot of insurance brokers, a lot of insurance companies, and a lot of repair centers just don't bother. And every major automaker does that. They have those numbers. They have specialized teams. So it doesn't matter if you have a Ford F-150 Lightning or you have a Subaru Solterra or a Chevrolet Bolt. You should be able to ring a number associated with your automaker and go, hey, how do I fix this problem? How do I repair this if the repair shop is giving you pushback? And so if you find yourself in the same situation that I have, a really sensible thing to do at this point is to reach out to that number yourself and go, hey, my vehicle is in the shop. My insurance company says this. My repair center says this. Can you help? And they're there and they will help. That's their job. Because to paraphrase what Gary said to me on the phone, we make these vehicles, we want to see them continue to be used on the road. We don't just want to see them in a junkyard or parted out. We want to see them on the road being enjoyed, being driven. And that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is unrelated to my particular accident repair and more related to what happened afterwards. So immediately after I published that video, probably within a couple of hours, Breitbart News, who is a very right-wing leaning, think Fox News, but like much more Fox News. There you go. I think I described it accurately without opening myself to liability, decided to highlight my story as one of those electric vehicles are shit and people who drive them are all gay stories. And they decided the best way to do that would be to take the video that I had filmed just here, misgender me intentionally in multiple comments, engage in that misgendering for over 400 comments on an X thread discussing how stupid I was. And when I found out about that, I was not happy. Because, of course, they didn't initially bother to follow up. They did eventually, but they didn't initially follow up with the, hey, the truck is saved and it's not going to be written off. They just went with this stupid person, and I refused to misgender myself, did this thing, they're stupid, ha ha ha. And all of the comments kind of went along those way. You know, people like, oh, every slur, literally. I'm not even going to tell you what slurs were used. But off of that, I got death threats to my email. I got harassed in my personal inbox. I got dead named. I got attacked on forums. And it continued for several days. But in the words of Carl from Dungeon Crawler Carl, you will not break me. I know who I am. I know why I am. And I know that what I do is not a reason to hate on someone online. I had a Disney Imagineer tell me once that her father told her that hate is a pill we can choose to take. And apologies if I've got that quote slightly wrong, Terry. I think I might have got it slightly wrong, but I, after 2 days of feeling like utter shite, have realized that I am not going to give in to hateful mofos who want to try and harass me online for having a vehicle that was damaged in an accident that was not my fault by a driver who was having a bad day. And I am not going to engage in that. And, you know, initially, for the first 48 hours after this all blew up, I genuinely considered cancelling Transport Evolved, like just saying F it and quitting. I considered making all of our videos audio only, i.e. never showing myself on camera. The harassment that I got and the name calling and the derogatory things said about me, my wife, my team, heck, even my freaking house, were indicative of the manosphere just venting their anger on the first available warm body. I was accused of insurance fraud. I was accused of, one person claimed I was in the country illegally, or that I identified as a British person. It really was hateful, and I'm not going to link to that post. It's still there, and people are still piling on. I was left feeling very, very vulnerable, but I've had time to reflect, and you know what? I think that it just makes me want to stay here and keep doing what I'm doing more. Because TE is about making the world cleaner, greener, safer, smarter, and more equitable. Safer for everybody, smarter for everybody. And giving people the information and the tips that they need to keep their vehicles on the road, whether it be, you know, a 6,000, 7,000 pound pickup truck that's electric, or a little electric bicycle. I am not playing their games, just as I do not play automaker games, I don't play influencer games. But there is one thing that you can help me with. And that is, last week, my other half lost their job as a consequence of a corporate reshuffle. They'd been at that job for 11 years, has not been laid off for nearly 20 years. And the knock-on effect of that is that TE needs to bring in a little bit more money. So if you want to support us, please go to patreon.com/Transport Evolved, or go to our main website and you can see our PO box there. You can also send us Ko-fi, or you can go and join the channel here on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching it on PeerTube. Choose your appropriate way to support us. Sharing our content really helps as well, but also being a fucking ally. I'm just going to say it. In the 1 million or so likes that diatribe of hate got on X, the 5,000 to 6,000 retweets, or whatever they call it these days, and the 500-ish comments on that thread, I could count the number of allies on one hand who actually stood up for what we do. I saw you if you were one of them, and thank you. But if you want to make this world a better place, stand up for people who are being treated like crap for just existing. If you want to help us, you want to help the channel, you want to help the community, do that. Because I know in here I'm none of the things that they said I was. And I know that you know that too. And I'm in a position of privilege. I have this channel, I have this mouthpiece. Without YouTube, I wouldn't have got this truck fixed. I'd be looking at a buyback. And I hate that. I hate that because I am who I am, I was able to get this truck fixed. And there are so many people who can't do that. But just as there are so many people who can't get their vehicle fixed because they don't have a direct line to someone at the automaker to help fix it, there are many, many more people who don't have a line to support when haters do the despicable, shitty things that they did. I have never hidden the fact that I am trans. Never on this channel have I pretended to be anything other than who I am. And I don't mention it because I want sympathy. I don't mention it because I want people to feel like I'm special. I mention it because I know that 30 years ago, a very scared me would really have loved it had there been more people visible going, hey, yeah, this thing is part of who I am, but I'm getting the help I need. I'm living my life authentically and I am succeeding. And that's what those fucking trolls hate. They hate the fact that I am succeeding. And the way to beat them is to continue to succeed, to continue to be visible, and continue to speak out. I know who I am in here, and I think most of you do too. Continue to be the most excellent people that you possibly can be. Continue to speak up, continue to speak out, and as always, keep evolving.